Your mother! Oga! Oga! Come out! Something is wrong!
The morning Grace collapsed on the kitchen floor of her son's Enugu home. She had already been awake for 4 hours. She had woken at 5, as she always did, to light the gas cooker and begin breakfast before Sandra stirred. She had swept the compound in the grey early light, washed the previous night's dishes Sandra had left piled in the sink with the quiet confidence of a woman who knew someone else would handle them, and had begun frying plantain when her legs simply gave way beneath her. She did not cry out. There was no one in that kitchen who would have come. It was the gateman, Emeka, who found her. He had come to return a key and pushed open the kitchen door to find Grace on the floor, one hand still reaching toward the cooker handle, the plantain burning black in the pan above her. He shouted. He ran. He banged on the bedroom door with both fists until Victor appeared, blinking and irritated in his pajamas, and Sandra appeared behind him with a face that, even in that moment of emergency, managed to arrange itself into something closer to inconvenience than fear. They rushed Grace to St. Mary's Specialist Hospital on Independence Layout. The doctor, a quiet, precise man named Dr. Okonkwo, came out to speak to Victor in the corridor 2 hours later and did not waste words. "Your mother is severely malnourished," he said. "She is dehydrated. She has the blood pressure of someone under sustained physical and emotional stress for a long period of time. She is 61 years old and her body is presenting like someone doing hard labor." He paused. "Who has been caring for your mother in your home?" Victor could not answer. Not because he did not know, but because the answer, spoken aloud in that bright hospital corridor, would have required him to become someone he was not yet ready to be. He had known. That was the truth Victor had been folding and tucking away for 11 months, since the day he brought Sandra home to Enugu, and his mother Grace had carried her own bag from the car to the boys' quarters without anyone offering to help her. He had watched Sandra hand Grace a list of chores on the 3rd morning of their marriage, as though Grace were staff inherited with the house. He had watched his mother serve Sandra's friends pepper soup and chilled drinks at the dining table, while Grace herself ate in the kitchen, standing, because Sandra had never offered her a seat, and Grace had never asked for one. He had told himself it was a period of adjustment, that Sandra did not mean it the way it looked, that all marriages required compromise. What he had actually been doing was choosing comfort over conscience every single day for 11 months. Grace spent 6 days in that hospital. Victor visited every evening, sitting beside her bed watching her mother's face as she slept. She was small against the white hospital pillow, smaller than he remembered. He thought about the woman who carried him through the Enugu market in the rain when he was 3, the woman who sat outside his WAEC examination hall and prayed the entire 3 hours, the woman who sold her wrapper collection piece by piece during his university years so he never missed a school fee. He thought about all of that, and then he thought about Sandra's list of chores and the burnt plantain and Emeka's fist on the bedroom door. He went home on the 4th night and told Sandra they needed to talk. Sandra listened with her arms folded and her head tilted at a slight angle she used when she had already decided she was not wrong. When he finished, she said, "Victor, your mother is a difficult woman. I have tried my best. You were not here every day to see how she provoked me. I am your wife. I expected more from you." He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in 11 months, he did not look away. "She is 61 years old," he said. "She was malnourished in my house, Sandra." Sandra's expression shifted, not into remorse, into something harder. "So you are choosing her over me now?" Victor said, "This is not about choosing. This is about what is right." But Sandra had already stood, already walked to the bedroom, already begun a phone call to her mother in Onitsha, loud enough to be heard from the sitting room, a voice performing injury, performing betrayal, building a case in real time. Victor sat alone that night and understood, with a clarity that felt like cold water, that he had married a woman he did not fully know. Grace came home on a Thursday. Victor had repainted her room, bought her a proper bed, placed a small refrigerator stocked with the things she liked. He carried her bag from the car himself. Sandra watched from the veranda without coming down. Then the business trouble started. Victor ran a logistics company with 3 partners. In the weeks after Grace's hospitalization, a major contract went to a competitor who knew the details of Victor's private bid. A key client called with anonymous concerns about financial management. His business account showed 3 withdrawals he had not made from an account that Sandra had emergency access to. When he confronted her, she did not deny it long. She sat at the dining table where his mother had never been allowed to sit and told him she had been unhappy and had been protecting herself. "You chose her over me," Sandra said. "Everything after that is a consequence of your choice." She moved out 2 weeks later. Her mother came with a truck. They took furniture, electronics, things Victor was certain were not Sandra's to take. He stood in the doorway and watched and felt, beneath the shock and the anger and the humiliation, something he took a moment to identify. Relief. But relief does not pay lawyers. The months that followed were the hardest of Victor's adult life. The legal separation, the forensic audit his partners demanded, the loan he took to stabilize the company, all of it, while learning for the first time how to keep a house and do the 1,000 small things he had always outsourced to others. Grace watched all of it. She did not say she had warned him. She did not remind him of the 11 months. She simply began quietly to help. A meal would appear, his shirt would be ironed. She would sit with him in the evenings and talk about small things, the neighbor's fence, a program she had watched, the price of tomatoes, until his shoulders came down from around his ears. One evening in November, 8 months after Sandra left, Victor came home from a meeting that had finally gone well. A contract restored, a client won back. He sat at the dining table and Grace brought him ofe onugbu with pounded yam the way she had made it since he was a boy. He looked at it and felt something crack open behind his eyes. "Mama," he said. Grace sat across from him and folded her hands on the table. "I am sorry," Victor said, "for all of it, for every day of it." The Enugu evening did what it always did outside, cooling fast, filling with generators starting up across the neighborhood, the distant bark of a dog, a child being called in somewhere down the road. "You were not a bad son," Grace said finally. "You were a confused one. There is a difference." She reached across and touched his hand briefly, the way she used to touch his forehead when he was sick as a child. "Eat your food before it gets cold." He ate, and for the first time in nearly 2 years, the food tasted like home. Victor rebuilt slowly. The divorce settlement cost him, but he paid it and moved forward. By the following year, the company stood on its own again, and Grace was there for all of it, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as his mother, seated at the head of his son's table, eating her meals in peace, like the woman of the house she had always been. There's a thing that happens to a man when he finally stops lying to himself. It does not feel like victory. It feels like waking in a room you thought you knew and finding the walls in completely different places. It is painful and it is necessary. Victor learned this the hard way. In an Enugu house, on a kitchen floor, at 5 in the morning, with burnt plantain and a gateman's fists on a door. Some lessons do not come gently, but they come. Did Victor deserve a second chance after everything he allowed to happen under his own roof? Or did Grace forgive him too easily? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to read every single one.